street gospel, light of the temple. Sword swing, killer live from the ghetto. The hood messenger, let them know hell's close. Blackberry on the devil in a black cloak.
Yo, what is up? Welcome to the Street Gospel Podcast. I'm your host, Dave One, and this is episode number... Yo, Cam, what episode is this? 70. Episode 70. Cam's last episode was his favorite, episode 69. Me and his mom talking about, sex and marriage and all. No, that wasn't Cam's favorite episode, but he did like it because it was his parents, man. It was a good episode. So check out episode 69. It featured my beautiful wife. We talked all things marriage, church, how to get along, a bunch of good stuff on there. So if you didn't catch that episode, make sure you catch that episode. Really quick, as always, make sure you subscribe. So wherever you watch the podcast at, listen, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. And we're good, man. But today we have a guest, and I'm kind of happy that this guy did this podcast today because I hear that he gets asked a lot, and I believe it. But he said that he'd do our podcast, which that makes two in a row because Arnold Barbosa got asked from everybody to do their podcast, and he said he wasn't going to do it. He was going to do ours, and this guy went ahead and did ours today, so I appreciate it. He is a believer, a husband, a father. He's a businessman, a speaker. He is a coach, and I hear he hoops a little bit. You know what I mean? So we got to see some video. Because we had the professor on this show.
There you go.
Straight up baller right there. So I want y'all to give it up out there for Mr. J. Gauthier Jr.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Super pumped to be here.
What's up, man?
What's going on?
Thanks for being on today.
I'm excited. It's an honor.
It's great, man. So you're a junior.
Yes.
I'm a junior too.
Sweet. I did not know that.
Yeah, I don't always use the junior, but it's on my license, it's on my passport, it's on all my paperwork, man. Junior. Go. So
there you go.
My father was David Senior, so I'm a junior, man. So this
awesome.
It's a blessing and a curse sometimes, though, right? Being a junior.
Yep, it is. It is, especially when dad's a pastor.
Okay, yeah. See, that is all bad right there, man. You got raised in a Christian home. Dad's a pastor.
Yep, I think I was born in the nursery almost. my whole life. I don't know anything otherwise.
Only the nursery. How tough is it being a PK, man, a pastor's kid? I mean, we hear all the horror stories. Do you have horror stories? Are you pretty like, nah, it was a good life?
It's interesting because I don't have anything to compare it to. It's all I know, but it does come with it comes with its drama. It comes with the expectation of you being perfect. It comes with the judgment and the looking down that you get from everybody in church.
Right.
I mean, everything's critiqued. Everything's in the spotlight. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm grateful for it.
That's good, man. Are you an only child?
No, I'm one of three.
One of three.
Are
you
two younger siblings?
Oh, okay. So you're the oldest. So you felt the brunt of everything before they did.
Yep.
Where did you grow up at?
I grew up in El Monte.
El Monte.
The hood.
Oh, in the hood. Okay, so I know El Monte.
There you go.
Right, so what side did you live on? Did you live on more the Mountain View side?
No, I was no, right by Arroyo.
Arroyo side.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like it's not like a great part. Any part of El Monte is rough,
but it wasn't the worst.
But yeah, Arroyo's not the worst though. It's a little up there is a little bit better.
My wife grew up off Klingerman, so she was on the other side. Yeah.
So you know what's funny thing about that is Klingerman is like I have there's a Klingerman Apartments.
Yep.
Infamous.
Yeah.
So my buddy's mom would be the woman that would go to the Klingerman Apartments and feed the kids, and then Christmas time. She'd give out toys, and she just barely retired. But I think she did that for like 30 years over there. So it's rough. I actually went to church in El Monte for a good number of years. Praise Chapel on Tyler. So still have friends that go there. I still know the pastor really well. I would go there because I had a lot of friends that went there. So we just gravitated there for I think 5 years. When my daughter was young, so we went there for about 5 years.
So I grew up off Tyler and Montecito, right across from Nativity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right in there.
Yep.
Man, and then did you go to? Did your dad pastor there?
My dad pastors at First Baptist Church
Okay.
of El Monte, still to this day.
Wow.
He's been there since 91.
Dang.
So it's been 32, 33 years now.
That's it. I mean, and then did you go through any struggles as coming up when you finally became a teenager? And church kids always seem. I was a church kid too. Seem to rebel a little bit.
Yeah, I did. I did. There's a lot of things that you look back. I was just telling my wife, it's interesting. As a kid, you don't think about the consequences of your decisions, And there's a lot of things now I look back and I go, man, thank God I didn't get caught doing that or that or that, because I wouldn't have my career today. I wouldn't be able to do it. So yeah, I did. There were things I shouldn't have done for sure, but I think I came out the best of the three.
Oh, really? Would they argue that? Maybe, huh?
Maybe.
I know. It seems like when they get to the youngest child, like the parents are just like, "I'll forget it." You know what I mean? Like the first one is always rough. They're always more stringent, and then by the time they got to my youngest sister, they were just like,
"Give up."
Yeah, we're tired now. You know what I mean? Like, just hold on, and you'll be an adult one day.
Yeah, exactly. The parenting goes to the kids now, the older kids.
Right. It's just like, yeah. So, did you play sports?
Yeah, I played sports my whole life. Played basketball, played football. Focused more on basketball. Basketball was, I wanted to play college ball, got hurt my senior year in high school, and so ended up not playing. Ended up going to the fire department instead. And then, I coached basketball for about 9 years at Rosemead High School, and I loved it, man. Sports has been my whole life, but we grew up in a sports family.
Yeah, sports is. I tell people all the time. There's sometimes they get on me for watching too much sports. I mean, I'm a Raider fan. I mean, you know how that goes. Yeah. Okay, so a Laker fan, Dodger fan, all that. I mean, Raiders were LA at one time. That's when I grew up.
It's all the same fan base.
Right. It's the same fan base. It's a rowdy fan base. I tell everybody, look, man, bottom line is this. Who do you want on your team if you're getting into a fight? You're going to want a Raider fan, a Laker fan, or a Dodger fan. You're going to want an Angel fan. I'm sorry, bro.
True.
You're not going to want an Angel fan on your team. There is some ghetto Clipper fans out there, so I'll give them that. But definitely going to want a Raider fan on your team. That's what I tell people all the time.
For sure.
But, I tell people there's something about sports like that brings your family. You said your family is a sports fan. Our family is a sports family too.
Yep.
There is a lot of memories within sports when you're growing up watching sports, right?
Yeah, 100%.
You remember the times and the experience you had in sport, like watching it with your family, right?
Yep, 100%.
I mean, think about. Okay, I know you're a Kobe fan, right?
100%.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, Ash too, right?
The biggest. Yep.
Yeah. So, I think people I had some people tell me when he passed, you didn't even meet him or you didn't know him. I don't know if you met him. You probably met him, right?
I did.
Yeah. So we'll get into that. But they were like, you don't even know him and you're so sad about it, And I'm like, yeah. I go, it's sad because you feel like you know him. You watch him for 20 years of your life. Mm-hmm. It's not just, he's not just a player that that got traded, after 4 years and you don't even know. Maybe a Kyle Kuzma, I remember Kyle Kuzma or Kwame Brown. Oh yeah, Smush Parker. I remember those dudes. He was mythical 20 years in one team, and you watch it. So I think when he passed, we would the biggest thing for us was dang, remember we watched that game, or remember this game, or remember when Ron Artest was a villain, and then he was on our team with Kobe, and he'd have Kobe's back. All that stuff, right? It's kind of like you put those memories together.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about sports, and that's also the cool thing of being fortunate to grow up. I was very fortunate to grow up in a good family, where my mom and dad have been married forever, and grow up in the church and have family support, parent support. We were able to play in all the sports, do all the travel ball teams. Mom and dad always came to the games, and so there's a lot of things that we're very blessed to have surrounding sports.
Now,
every childhood memory is sports. So
it is, right? I tell people that all the time. It's like more of the memory of those things. More, it's just getting together, going to little league games,
right?
And then one day you're taking your kids to games, and you're like, hey, I remember this. Like,
there you go.
Man, I can't believe my dad was that dedicated because it sucks every weekend. Practice and everything. But it's a good thing. Does your you have one child?
We have a goddaughter.
Your goddaughter play sports?
Yep.
I know Ash always says that you take care of her really well. Take her everywhere with you. But yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch that stuff. It's really good to watch that stuff and get involved in that. I mean, it's a great thing. Now, I heard you're a musician too.
Yeah, I lead worship at church. Yeah, so I play guitar, drums, and piano.
Cam will be in love with you, man. He's a bass player for the worship.
There you go.
I mean,
there you go.
How do you fit that in with your schedule? We'll get into your schedule and everything but how do you still do that?
You know, it's a passion. It's something I love. I think worship is one of the most powerful tools, of Christianity and faith, and so I look forward to it. It's Sunday would probably be in most cases the one day when I didn't have to get up early, and because of worship, it's the day I get up the earliest. Of the week, but man, I look forward to it. It's a blast.
Are you still lead? Is it at your dad's church?
Worship at dad's church. Yeah,
man, that's amazing. I love that, man, because like most times kids get to a certain age and they're like, yeah, I can't stay here no more. And they leave their dad's church, but you're still serving in your dad's church. That's pretty special, man. It's
a blast, man. It's an honor. It's a blessing for sure. Every Sunday morning, my dad also is on the worship team. He sings. Goddaughter sings, and we're actually pretty good, man. I look forward to it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Is your dad a big dude?
Dad's 6'2".
Yeah, so he's a big dude. So you got some big people on the worship team, man.
Well, my brother-in-law plays the bass. He's Samoan.
Oh man,
he's 6'4", 330 pounds. He's a big boy.
Now you do a lot of stuff in this financial realm,
right?
But because you lead worship and you're still involved in your dad's church, before we get into the financial, how much of giving back is important when you're talking about financial stuff? I mean, because you're making room for that, you're making room for God, but you're making room to serve the church. That's what you're doing. Is that a big part of your financial advice when you give to people?
It's funny. So I have a client who I just met with last night. She's been a client of mine 8 years. Her husband just recently passed away. And 8 years ago, this is in the beginning of my career, we put a life insurance policy in place for her husband.
Wow.
$500,000, nothing crazy. And that husband died at 52. Unexpected. Thought he was healthy. Mountain biking every day, 6-pack, worked out, the whole thing. You look at him, you'd think he was in great health. And she reminded me of something last night when I sat with her. She said, Jay, do you remember 8 years ago when we did this, I asked you what happens if we can't afford it? What happens if we get to a place where we can't put money into the account every month? And she said, do you remember what you told me? And I said, no, I don't remember. That was 100,000 appointments ago. I have no clue. What did I say? She said, you looked at me and you said, if you can't afford it, then tithe more.
Wow.
And I said, oh, well, I still believe that. She said, that stuck with me for the last 8 years. That's been in my head. So I'm a big believer that you show your commitment to something, whether it's people, whether it's a career, whether it's a hobby, whether it's your faith, in two ways, which is time and money. That's the only thing. Lip service, talking, words, is irrelevant. So in my mind, my commitment to my faith and to my church and to the things that I believe in, I could only show that, to God by either making time for it, and also in giving, diligently and faithfully. And so, yeah, man, I think it all goes together. The Bible says to whom much is given, much is expected, right? And so the more you do it right, I think the more you get. So
That's awesome, man. How did you get involved? You said you're a fireman. How did you get involved in the finance world there?
So I've been in my industry now since April of 2011. So we just hit what would be 12 years?
Yeah.
Growing up, I talked a lot.
Let's tilt your mic up a little bit.
I always
There
got
we
in
go.
trouble for talking a lot. I always got in trouble for talking back. I wanted to be an attorney. That was my goal. And then I realized how much school is required
It's a lot.
for being an attorney. And I said, well, you know what? I already hate school. I went to college for one semester at a Christian school, master's college.
Okay.
And where my dad went for seminary. And after one semester, I said, well, I don't want to do this. This is I think a lot of kids go to school now because they feel like it's what they have to do so their parents will leave them alone. But it's a very expensive lesson, if you're just trying to figure out what you want to do in life. And so after one semester, I was $20,000 in debt, and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. So I left, ended up going to UCLA for paramedic school. I said, I'm going to go become a fireman. Everybody loves a fireman. Career is good. Doesn't require 8 years of college.
Retirement's great.
Retirement's great. I could do this forever. Went to school, did well. My parents thankfully supported me in wanting to do that. Because they paid for it. Obviously, it wasn't cheap, and I think I knew that they weren't sure I was going to finish because I was very flighty. I would start something and then move on to something else, and I would never finish one thing. And I did. I finished. I knocked it out of the park. Finished top of my class. Got on an ambulance. Started doing that. And I'll tell you what happened. I was sitting there one day, and I was thinking about my career. And my wife was in grad school. And she was finishing her master's at Laverne in psychology. And I remember sitting there going I was on the ambulance and I was working and I was thinking and I said, do I want to do this forever? 20, 30 years. And the last day of medic school, the professor had a fireman who's been a fireman for 25 years. He had 5 more years to retirement. He came to the class. And he would talk and tell his story and, talk about his career. And then he did Q&A. And I'm listening. And after class, I walked up to him when class was already over, one-on-one. And I said, hey, can I ask you something? If you could go back 25 years, is there anything you would do different? Or are you happy with your career?
Wow.
And he looked at me and he said, if I could go back 25 years and give you any advice, I would tell you to run.
Really?
Find something else to do.
Wow.
And he was so honest with me. And I asked him, I said, can I ask you why? He said, I'm burnt out. I've been burned out for 10 years. Oof. I've been divorced twice. This is a single guy's job. If you ever want to be married and have a family, this is not what you want to do.
True.
And I kid you not, I left that day and I kept working. My dad my mom and dad, have been faithful to their ministry for forever. Since I can't even remember. Even when they moved to church in El Monte as the senior pastor, he was already pastoring in Santa Clarita as a youth pastor before that when I was born. And my mom and dad always struggled financially. They've been, you don't choose ministry to be wealthy here on earth, right?
My wife, real quick. My wife was a PK.
Okay.
Okay, her dad. Before she became a PK, her dad worked at McDonnell Douglas.
Okay.
In the 90s, making bank, right?
Right.
They become pastors. I remember going over there, we were dating, and I'm just like, you guys are not celebrating Christmas? We have no money.
Right.
It all goes to the church. And I could not believe it. So you're right. When people talk about Joel Osteen and all these rich pastors, God bless them, but the majority of churches are it's a very small segment of those guys. The majority of churches, the pastor is struggling just to make it.
100%. Yeah. My mom and dad always struggled, and as a kid, I never knew that. We had everything. Yeah, I mean, every travel ball team, new shoes. Every school year, we'd go to whatever. I don't remember what store it was back then, Kmart or whatever, and we get a new backpack and a new pencil box and a new lunch pail and everything. Christmas comes around, when the motor scooters came popular, we all got one. You know, like we had everything. And then I realized there's a point in life where as a kid you get old enough where you start to see your parents as people,
right?
Not just as your parents, right? And I remember that moment when I said, holy smokes, my mom and dad are broke. And I think we've always been broke. And then I started to realize everything my parents did for us was all on credit card.
Wow.
They lost their house, filed bankruptcy, you know, had to move out. It was the most embarrassing moment of my parents' life. I mean, my dad said that afterwards later on. But because my parents were always broke, you know, I believe fear sharpens listening, right? When you're scared, you pay more attention.
That's good. My
dad got a call from a girl who was in his youth group 20 years before that. And she said, Pastor Jay, will you come down? First she said, Pastor Jay, this is Ann. Do you remember me? And my dad's like, yeah, of course I remember you. He had no clue who she was. But he said he did. She said, will you come down to this office in Chino Hills? I'm working in the financial industry, and I need to have an appointment. And I need to find an appointment with someone who is a center of influence, that has credibility, that everybody listens to, that knows a lot of people, and could hopefully send me referrals. Will you come down here? My dad ends up showing up to the office. And because my parents were so broke, my dad was on a $2,000 salary at the church for like 20 years. And the guy who my dad sat with said, hey, you're in your late 40s. 25 years ago, the church should have set up a retirement plan for you. You have nothing. Retirement is not an option for you based on you putting $200 a month in an account. There's not enough years for that to happen. Oof. The only way you're going to retire financially, because you'll probably do ministry forever, but the only way you'll financially ever be in a position where you don't have to worry about money again is if you could figure out how to make more money. Because if you could make more money, you could catch up. But that's the only way. And so my dad ended up getting his license to work in the financial industry.
Wow.
And he called me and he told me, hey, will you come down here? If I'm going to do this, I want to do it with you. I want us to do it together. Just the way you and Cam do this together. You know, my dad was like, hey, I want to have something we could do together. And at that moment, Jerry Brown had just came into office, laid a bunch of people off. I lost my job in the fire department. My dad didn't know I was at the lowest point financially that I had ever been at. And it was putting pressure on our marriage because we were broke and my wife was working and finishing grad school. And she was carrying all the bills and I was the freaking loser husband sitting at home who couldn't get my crap together. And it was literally all at that same time. And the funny thing is that if you look at any great business or anything great that blew up, it was started in most cases at someone's lowest point.
Yeah,
right?
True.
That was my lowest point. My dad had no clue. I went down to an office 3 days later and started my whole career. And never did I plan on it being my career. Never did I think I was going to do it forever. I knew nothing about money. I knew nothing about retirement. Nothing.
How old were you?
I was 21.
Oh, yeah. So you're still a
21,
baby.
man. Yeah, that was it.
Were you good at it right away? Not that you loved it, but were you good at it? Like you're saying, I'm pretty good at this. Yeah,
I was good at it. I thank God every day. Every day when I pray at night, I thank God that I don't suck at what I do because now I run a firm. I've recruited and trained about 300 advisors that work for me, and they ain't all good at it, you know. And so and some of them I see, man, they're hungry and they want it, but they just don't got it.
Yeah.
But they'll do all right. They'll make 50, 60, 70 grand a year, but they're never gonna be huge.
Over the top, yeah.
You know, but yeah, I'm very grateful that I've always been good at it. But here's the one thing I had. I didn't have experience. I didn't have credibility. I couldn't call 100 people that would take me serious because I was a kid. And all my friends were a little bit older than me, and they all knew me as being the punk teenager in church. You know, like that was it. They didn't know me as... They weren't going to take me serious.
So you couldn't lean on, let me get friends and family to be my first client?
Not at all. Not at all, man.
Everybody's like, I'm not going to lie to you, man. One day... I had my cousin come over, and he was trying to get in that realm, right? He gave his best pitch, and I was like, he left, and I just told my wife, I was like, it's going to be rough for him.
No joke.
It's going to be rough for him.
But when you come from very little, and based on what I know from you guys, you probably relate to this. The one thing I had, when you start from the bottom, if you could make it out,
Yeah.
you have something inside you that nobody else has.
Right.
Which is the fact that you've come from nothing and you got a fighter in you and you know how to make it out. Someone who started at the top doesn't have that.
Yeah, I think it's first I think it's the nothing to lose mentality.
Right.
And then it's like, I don't want to be here forever.
Amen.
Like, so I have to make this work. I have to make this happen. So I always give the analogy of the guy that buys his own car. Cam bought his own car on his own.
Go.
You know what I mean? But a kid, he has friends that their parents bought the car for him.
Right.
I bet you Cam's car is cleaner than theirs.
For sure.
Right? I bet you he babies that truck way better. It might be a used Tacoma, but this guy takes care of that truck. He loves that truck. That's his baby. He has friends that have brand new, cool little Civics. I mean, they might be a little dirty, you know what I mean? But the parents bought them.
Right.
So there's
right.
not enough. There's no effort. There's no love because you didn't earn it. I think that
Right.
there's something about when you earn it and it's not given to you that you're
100%.
like, I'm going to push it a little bit further.
Yep, I agree.
Man, so you started working, and then you saw some success. And when did you decide that, okay, this is going to be my career?
You know, I took my wife to we had an event.
Oh, what did she think about your new endeavor?
Here's the funny thing. She actually didn't know in the beginning.
Okay.
And the reason why is because my dad had done everything just trying to make it, before that. And so he had got involved in like pyramid schemes, all kinds of stuff. He was driving back. This was before Uber. So he was driving like town cars, picking rich people up from the airport. He was just doing everything he could to make money and just to keep the bills paid. So he would go pastor the church, do all that stuff. And then at night from 5 p.m. till 4 in the morning, he would drive and pick rich people up and, do all this stuff just to make ends meet. My mom was a high school teacher for 20 years at Rosemead High School. And so mom made the majority of the income. Well, my dad, because he had done all this pyramid scheme stuff before, didn't really have a lot of credibility with my wife. So when my dad calls me and he says, hey, I want you to come to this meeting, come meet this guy. I went in secret, right? Thinking a secret. My wife knew I was up to something, but the reality is I went without telling her. I didn't have money to get my license. My dad paid for my license, and so nothing came out of my pocket. So, but then I ended up telling her, and when I told her, she's like, "Is your dad there? Is this something your dad's doing?" And I was like, "Oh no, my dad. Why would dad be there?"
Right.
And so, about 3 weeks later, we went to an event, which was a training event for getting your license. But there was like 700 people. It was huge. And my wife's sitting in the back of the room. I don't really know anything at this point. But, my wife's watching the whole thing, and she turns to me and she says, "This is perfect for you."
Wow.
And I was like, "Really? Well, I think so, but why do you think that?" And she's like, you're never going to get bored here. She said, "There's tons of competition. It looks like one big sport.
Wow.
There's a scoreboard." She's like, and I like it. She's like, the people that run this company are good people, because they're talking about faith from the stage, and they prayed for lunch that day, and a lot of stuff you don't see in corporate America. And so my wife says, "This is perfect for you." The second she said that, man, I was like, I'm gonna go all in.
That's awesome. I like it that perspective that she had right away. It's competitive. You're an athlete. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You like the competition. It's a numbers game. Whoever has the highest numbers wins. Like, she put that into perspective. But then secondly, I love, there's nothing like your wife when she gets behind you.
Right.
And just gives you like a little push, and it's like your cheerleader.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? Like, you almost feel like you can do anything if you have, you could. All you single guys out there, you get a good woman that's your cheerleader and that push you. There's something about that, dude. You're just like, you feel like you could do anything.
100%. And there's nothing more powerful than two people working towards one thing with the same goal, but they bring two different skill sets, to the table, and you could get a lot done.
That's dope, man. So you started seeing some success?
It took me about 15 months to make a 6-figure income, and that was
15 months.
Yeah, about 15 months.
At 21, 22
years old, yeah. So that was 13 years ago. So 6-figure income back then was more than it is now.
Oh, yeah.
6 figures is 100,000 and also 900,000. But to cross 100,000 It took me about 15 months.
And are you just like, yeah, this is it? I'm all in now.
It's funny, man, because I love to work, and the funny thing is in school and everything before that, I was always told, my parents were always told that I was lazy. That's all they ever heard, and maybe it was true, but I think when something captures your heart and you go like, hold on a second, this is something I could do.
Right.
Man, you become passionate about it. I just became passionate about it. And I'll be honest, I love making money. I love making money. I love having a good lifestyle. I love sitting courtside at every Laker game. I love being able to give without limitation.
Right.
My driving passion the first 5-6 years of my career was I would sit in the church budget meeting and I would sit on the church deacon board and I would look at the church's budget, and all I ever knew in church was we have no money. That's all I would ever hear is we have no money. Well, why don't we give to missions? We don't have money to give to missions. We can barely pay the electric bill, let alone support someone in Brazil, And so I sat in that meeting for years once I had gotten in business going, okay, if I tithe 10%, what do I need to make in order to cover the church's budget? And I started really having a vision for that of,
that's awesome, man.
If I make $40,000 a month, the church will never think about money again, and that was really my driving motivator for so long, and then once we got there, it was okay. I prayed about it for a long time. When we get to the annual meeting, I'm going to propose that we raise Dad's salary, and I got a little pushback on it, but that was, I just think it was so much fun, bro. So I love making money because it opens up every single resource that you could have.
Now, Jay, the problem with making more money for most people, you sound pretty unique because the more people make, the stingier they get. A lot of times they get because either it's fear that they're going to go back to being broke, or it's mine. I earned it. Everybody says I'm self-made. I made it on my own. And they're just like, so they get their funds and it's just theirs. You're opposite. What was the difference there?
Well, I don't believe anyone's self-made. Well, people say they're self-made, right? Self-made millionaire.
It's fake.
And the reality is that they're right.
They do the hard work. You have to do the hard work.
But people only put the self-made before their name when they did well. Because if you're broke, you're also self-made. You're self-made in poverty. You're self-made filing bankruptcy. You're self-made $50,000 in credit card debt. And so it's all self-made. But the reality is I don't believe anyone does anything successfully on their own. If you look at anything, in the Bible, the Joshua chapter 12 lists all the battles, right, that they won. Every single king that was defeated. That was not done alone. In the beginning, it says, you and all these people are going to go here, right? Not just you. Yeah. And so I think God is a co-pilot, right? Even though he's a pilot, I think I'm kind of the co-pilot. But we do it together, right? I'm gonna work like it's up to me and pray like it's up to God. And the reality is that I think that mentality of wanting to hoard everything, I think money's bad because the Bible says the love of money,
right,
is the root of all evil. Not
doesn't
money.
Mean it's bad, but the love of it,
right?
Yeah.
The I think it's only bad when your pocket's the last one it's ever in, right? So because money prints your Bibles, money pays your pastors, money funds your missionaries. Yeah. Money is what
we need. Money to move the gospel,
right? Exactly. The ministries that don't have a money problem can do anything.
Yeah,
anything. Our church is really involved with Operation Christmas Child. Are you guys familiar with that? Okay. So my dad's actually the regional director now, I think, in Southern California for it. And they did I think our church did 15,000 shoe boxes last year or something like that. And, but the reason that ministry could go so far is it doesn't have a money problem. So I think a scarcity mentality, that scarcity mentality of there's a lacking of, there's a shortage of, there's not enough of, I think that mentality is what causes that stinginess. It's the constant, it's so easy for us to list all the things that we don't have, right? Or a to-do list versus like a list God already did this, right? And a whole list of that.
I just posted that today.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was at work. I'm walking into the job site, right? And I'm just thinking, and I have this men's group. So I sent a message to the guys, and I get, sometimes, man, we're first to write down the list of every bad thing that happens,
right,
or every bad thing that's going on in our life. But we don't start off the morning with a list of all the good things. Hey, you woke up today. Hey, I'm breathing. Hey, I got to get ready to go to work. I got a job.
Right.
That's a car. It may not be the best car, but it's going to get me to the job site.
Yeah.
I got a wife that loves me. There is food in the fridge.
Yep.
And we forget about all that. So we'll list, I got this bill to pay, or I don't feel good, or this job sucks, or you know what I mean? And it's just, I got to deal with this boss. And it's just all this negative stuff first. Of course your day's going to be negative.
100%.
Start off with a positive list, and then then you can worry about the negative stuff after.
Right.
It doesn't make it go away, but it really puts your life into perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And and then there's that balance of, yes, I'm very big on all my gratitudes, right? And but then there's also like all the victories, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that I've done that I could never have imagined I would have done before. Those are victories, those are things God did for me, right? Those were blessings. And then there's the balance of, but could I do more? I could do more, right?
Yeah.
So there's a scarcity mentality. There's an abundance mentality too, which is, man, I could do more. I could do more than this. Sure, I've done a lot, but man, imagine what I could do. 10 years from now, I'll look back and go, man, I had hardly done anything. And so, it's a balance, I guess. And it's something that I think struggled with, not myself, but I struggled with people in my church being able to relate to that way of thinking.
Yeah.
Because when you grow up in a small Christian church that's very traditional, they almost look at money as a bad thing. Even though it's what they always lack and it's what's always needed, it's also a bad thing, where, being rich is a bad thing. It's like, I don't know. But my dad, I remember one time asked me why I didn't pursue ministry as a career, to be a pastor. And I was honest with him. I said, because I don't want to be broke. And if you're a pastor and you make money, everyone calls you a con artist. I just don't want to be broke.
It's so crazy. Why do you think, you mentioned you were in the budget meetings. And I went to a church, and I go to church now, that's very conscious and very open about the need, and then very open when people give. We just did. They sponsor my church sponsors the show, and what they do is, hey, we're going to take the big give every year, and this year we got into like 6 figures, which is crazy. Nice. for we're a medium sized church. 6 figures in one offering, crazy, right? So boom, and it was like a huge jump up from last year.
Wow. I
think it was like 35,000, 40,000 more from last year. And so we're like, I feel good about giving. Number one, because I know where it's going to.
Right.
It's in what ministries it's being used at. And our church does everything with class, does everything, top notch. Nothing's done cheaply. I'm sure it's on a budget, but I'm sure that it's done well. But there's a lot of churches that just don't seem to, I don't know, get over the hump, or they can be have a church for like 40 years and there's no abundance of anything. What do you think is the church's main problem when it comes to money?
Well, I can tell you statistically, tithing is very, very low. It's very low. I think the average, it's like 1.5%.
Yeah, I think it's like 3% or 5% of the church supports 95%.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, something like the stats ridiculous. It's really crazy. It's God. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. I think a lot of it goes back to, well, I could tell you from my dad's perspective, he doesn't feel comfortable preaching about tithing. I think a lot of pastors, because of the stigma of money, and they don't even necessarily feel comfortable talking about it. Yeah. They almost feel guilty talking about it because it almost feels self-righteous or selfish to talk about it. But I also think it's a cultural thing, because when I go to a black church, man, it's completely different.
Really?
You go to a Southern Baptist church, completely different. You watch TD Jakes, completely different. The message is very different than the church I grew up in. The message in a black church is ownership, be an entrepreneur, work for yourself, don't have a job, don't have a boss. God didn't put you here to make somebody else money. Go make something happen for yourself. And then tithe, and make a ton of money.
Wow.
Like, it's very different. So
Yeah.
I go to like my friend's church, which is predominantly a black church, huge church in Inglewood. And that's the message from the pulpit. You know, God didn't make you to be average.
So you're like,
And I'm just like, Amen. And I tell my dad, and my dad's like, yeah, that wouldn't go. If I gave that sermon, I'd probably get ran out of the church. You know, so I think it's a
cultural
thing too. And I don't know, man.
But they need to talk about money, right?
100%.
I mean, I tell people that all the time. When people find out I'm a believer at work, wherever I may be, they're like, "Oh man, the church, they just want your money." And I said, I don't feel like that at my church. Because there's the ones that preach, give, and there's one that don't preach, and there's some like in the middle, like, hey, we're gonna give, we have the big give, like our church, and they don't, we don't pass the buckets around, during offering, or have a little speech, or somebody comes up and shares about money, and, hey, give the 10th, and we don't have that whole thing. It's just, hey, we want to give, you text to give. They show the little QR code. There's little podium giving things. You can drop it in there when you leave, or give on the app. Right. So it's just real. Hey, just give. I mean, but then I think people, the first thing they tell me is like the church is just after your money, and I don't feel like that. I feel like, let me give my 10%, because I know 10% is the Lord. And they don't understand that concept. Of course, they're not saved. But I was like, hey, 90% after I give to the Lord will go further than the 100%.
Right.
And then it's used well. But the whole thing with giving is, I want to give because I want to be able that we can have this event, invite all these unsaved people.
100%.
Or I want to do, we want to do a men's thing, and the church, we need funds to promote this, or bring in a speaker, and then we support ministries that save kids from sex trafficking.
Wow.
And then they share that with us. Hey, 9 kids were saved this month. And you're like, I gave to that.
That's why I gave.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, but a lot of times the church doesn't, like, people in the church don't realize, and you're right, the cultural thing's the big thing, because I think a lot of people get in the mode of, well, Jesus didn't have a lot of money, or the disciples lived off of wherever they were preaching at, or whatever.
Right.
So I think they get in the culture of that. So that makes sense to me, because I think people, they think they have to be a martyr to be a good Christian. You know what I mean? And we need guys like Jay to come into the church and tithe, and even not. I mean, a guy that makes 100,000,
100%,
tithes and just is faithful, and that propels church, everything more.
Yeah, and it's not even the amount, right? Because the Bible talks about the woman who just put her 2 coins in there, right?
Exactly.
And God can do whatever He wants with it. I think giving is an act of obedience, because it's what we're supposed to do, right? Everything we have, if you're a person of faith and you believe that, everything is a gift. Yeah. Everything we have is a gift, right? None of it is done at our own merit. But it's also an act of faith. Philip Yancey defines faith as something you do in advance that only makes sense looking back in reverse, right? And that, I think that's what giving is. When I'll tell you, there was a time when this missionary came to church, and he got up in front of the room, cute little old man, like 70-something years old, and he was talking about his mission and everything he's doing. And this is a guy who our church had supported for like 25 years. And but he also shared how the support that he has in its entirety is a lot less than it used to be. And so he had went and met with his, missions group that kind of like manages him, sponsors him, and like helps him get funding and stuff. And he was explaining to them, this is what I have, this is my lifestyle, this is my budget, this is all I need, and they were asking him, well, is there anything else you can cut out? And this guy's not living a lavish life. He's driving like a piece of junk.
He's probably like, food?
Exactly. His response was, well, the only thing that I could really cut out would be the internet, but that's how I send my emails to everyone, to give them updates. And I sat in the back of the room and I watched this guy and I'm like, God, this poor dude, like, how much could it cost to have his internet? So I asked my dad, I'm like, can you find out from him how much his internet is for the year? I just want to pay for it for the whole year. And I only tell this story because I made a big mistake. So I'll use it as an example. My dad's like, yeah, it's like $600 for the year. I was like, perfect. I wrote a check for $750, sent it to him. And then like next week, the check hadn't cleared. 2 weeks later, check hadn't cleared. A month later, the check hadn't cleared. And I'm like, this guy can't need the money that bad if he still hasn't deposited the check,
Right.
And back then I wasn't, doing as well as we do now. And so I didn't like having to keep the money there in the account for it to clear. Right. And so finally, after like 2 months, I was like, you know what? Cancel the check. I canceled the check. $750. I kid you not. I felt so guilty and so stupid about it. The next day, I'm driving to church on the freeway, 10 freeway, about to get off at Valley. Boom, my tire blows out. And I was like, oh, shoot.
By the duck farm?
Yeah, right around that area. Yep, correct. I pull over, my tire blew out, and my rim cracked.
Oh, man.
I go to the shop, $742. Almost the exact amount of the check I canceled. And I'm like, and I wasn't even mad. I kind of laughed about it. And I'm like, yep, I knew it was coming. I knew it. And God's like, let me just teach you. Now you got to go fix your crap and you better write another check. It cost me double. But I'm like, there's two places you don't mess around with money: God and the IRS. Those are two things I get right.
Yeah, definitely. I like the part of you giving and helping that guy. Do you think that as believers, you should watch who you give to and maybe know what their ministry is about? Or are you of the belief of, look, I'm going to give it kind of like if you give like $10 to the guy at 7-Eleven. You know he's going to go in and buy beer. But you're just like, nah, I'm going to bless this guy, whatever he does with it from here on out. Because sometimes I feel like that. I feel, not in my church now, but in the past, I'll be like, all right, I'll bless this guy because I'm not going to give it to him. Whatever he decides to do with it is on him, but I'm still going to get the blessing from God because I gave. But I mean, what?
I don't know. I don't know if that's the right or wrong answer.
As a church kid there, because I think about that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think about like, I believe I'll still get blessed. Like if I'm going to give this bum $5 and I know he's not buying a chili dog and some of those poppers from 7-Eleven, right? He's going to buy beer as soon as I leave.
Right.
And I'm like, well, God's not going to rip me off from my blessing because I blessed this guy. This is what he said he needed. Cool. I wanted to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Elevate Ministries. Elevate Ministries is an authentic, passionate, and innovative church in the heart of Orange County, California. They strive to make their services welcoming and encouraging by intentionally engaging you in all senses to stimulate a spiritual hunger. If you're looking for a great church that's on a mission to change the world one person at a time, I encourage you to check them out at www.elevateministries.com and on Instagram at Elevate Ministries. But should you kind of know and maybe... I mean, that's where I think the church messes up, that they're not really transparent in, hey, this goes here, this goes there. I love when they would have like financial meetings. I would think that it was cool because I didn't worry if I knew the pastor, and I've been close to my church family forever.
Right.
And so I know that we're spending it well. I could tell. But I've been in churches where I'm like, yeah, man, this church is paid off. Where is the money going to? It's not the building because the building's thrashed. But, like, you should know a little bit. Like,
that's funny.
Maybe the investor in you probably goes, yeah, man, that's not a good investment.
Well, it's funny because there's different churches at different stages, right? I think, like, some churches are in survival mode. So they can't necessarily get up there and go, like, hey, last month we supported Operation Underground Railroad and 9 girls got saved from sex trafficking, right? Because they're like, Because some churches are just like, hey, last month we paid the electric bill. You guys see that? All right, we're solid. Yeah. But then I went to a church, which I won't name, but I went to a church where I really love to go. I love sometimes as a worship leader to go to a church where no one knows me and I could just be a part of worship instead of, So I like to go to churches that have really good worship. And then the pastor came up on stage, and there's nothing wrong with this, but I'm just giving you perspective of what my friend told me. Because my friend's a member there, and he goes to church there and tithes there regularly. And the pastor comes out to preach in a pair of Yeezys.
Yeah, see.
And my friend looks at me and he goes, give me your guys' church tithing app. He's like, I'm not putting money in this place no more. They don't need the money. He's like, this dude's wearing a pair of Yeezys during his sermon. What? There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's a pair of shoes, but I get it though. Yeah, I get it, right?
Yeah.
So,
it's a visual, right?
Right.
It's definitely a visual. I think I asked. I'll say it because he answered it on here. I had Pastor Jay Hazlip. He pastors the sanctuary in Costa Mesa, right? So I said, Pastor Jay, do you ever get worried like people questioning you? I mean, you kind of dress sharp, man. You look like you have a nice car. You look good, Pastor Jay. I don't know. You whatever, but do you think about that? So he said I don't think about it, but I'm very transparent. He goes, we don't only own our building, but we own a few buildings around our church, and we rent those out. We reinvest the money, and that's what funds the church. And he goes, that's what funds my salary. But we're not sitting back and just collecting money, and not putting it to good use. So I said, okay. So I like that, but you're right. I think sometimes. Like you see the pastor pull up in a caddy and the church is like beat, right? Then you're thinking like, hey, that's when I think the perspective goes out the window. Like, and it's funny because people argue the Joel Osteen all the time, right?
Right.
And I'm thinking like, are the TBN people? And I'm like, do you realize like TBN people, like what they did? Like they had a whole network. Like I know it was from giving, but they weren't foolish with the money. They actually like built that up and turned it around. Right. And then I go, and then. Like Joel, like his dad had a mega church already when he took over. I mean, wherever Joel, I mean, you still got to do something right from there on out after you took it over from your dad. Right. So I don't know. It's just, it's a tricky thing, but I do think the visual thing is big, especially because of, online, right? I mean, people think that probably like Jay's like way over the top, just like everywhere. He's at the game and they judge you off of what they see, but I mean, I think for a pastor, it's probably double.
Well, 1,000%, probably 10 times the amount. Because when he walked out, I was like, "Oh, dang, nice shoes," And I'm a sneaker guy. And then my buddy's like, "I'm not giving any money to this place ever again." And I'm like, "Wow, bro, chill." Like, what do you want him to wear? Sandals?
I know, yes. That's the thing to it. Like, I don't know, man. To me, it's kind of. I tell people all the time, I was like, look, man, whatever. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here. It's not my job. Even on like the podcast, people want me to have people on here and want me to battle or want me to go like put people on blast and show. And I'm like, that's not my thing, dude. Like, I don't want to do all that. I don't think that's fruitful. It's not gaining nothing for me.
Right.
There's other podcasts that do that. I'll let them do that. But if this guy is, I mean, whatever, man. I mean, if he's looking good, I mean, I like to look good. I mean,
100%.
I mean, I don't have a great sneaker game. I have decent, but I like to wear nice sneakers.
Yeah, I agree.
So let me ask you this, man. What's the biggest problem with people and money? I know there's a lot, but what is the biggest thing? What is the biggest problem? Do they not know how to use money? Nobody taught them? Or what would you say would be like the biggest problem that you see all the time?
I think it's grounded in a lack of education. If you look at the school system, for example, money is the only thing not taught. They teach everything. California at one point voted, do we want to teach sex education or financial education? And we chose sex education. I think everyone's pretty good at sex already, but that's what we chose.
You don't need to figure it out, right? My wife were talking about that on the last podcast.
Yeah, we chose sex education. Like, it's amazing to me because I have clients that are, some of these guys make $50 million a year, and then I've got clients that they make $50,000 a year, and they're just everyday working people. But the funny part is that money is not taught anywhere. So if you think back of everything you know about money, and then you go, okay, where did I learn it? You know, where do you learn? Think about it for you. Where everything you know about money, what would you say you've learned it from?
I've learned it from either a bad investment.
Okay.
I've learned it from either having to owe the IRS money.
Okay. So
nobody. We talked about this last thing. Nobody taught us anything about money.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I wish, and it could be something minor. You know, save.
Yeah,
just save.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, or interest rate. Do you really know what an interest rate? Nah.
Right.
I want that car.
Right.
Oh, what's the monthly payment? Oh, I can afford that. No problem.
Yep.
And then now I look back and I was like, I really paid that much for that car by the end of that loan?
Right.
Like, that was ridiculous.
Right.
So stuff like that. So I would say I learned from my mistakes.
From your mistakes.
Which is awful.
And that's where most people learn. They go, oh, I learned it from my parents. Okay. What if your parents knew nothing about money? What if your parents were broke? Then what? Okay, well, I learned from my mistakes, own life experiences. Money's not taught. So what happens is you have someone who, because just imagine if like the first day of Ash's senior year in high school, someone came in and said, hey, in 8 months, 9 months, you guys are going to graduate. You're going to be adults. Some of you are going to go to college. Some of you are going to get married. Some of you are going to have kids. Some of you are going to start businesses. Some of you are going to go get a job. No matter what you do, there are basic things you need to know about your money in order to not repeat the cycle of poverty that came from the family you're a part of, right? And so here's the things we're going to teach you this year. We're going to teach you how your retirement plan works so you understand your 401k, 403b, 457, deferred comp, pension, whatever. We're going to teach you the ins and outs, when you could touch it, how it works, how much you're paying in fees, and how taxes work. We're going to teach you how to put your kids through college someday. Because all your parents are like, you're going to college whether you like it or not. But they didn't plan for it 20 years ago in order to put you there. So now they're forcing $100,000 of student loans down your throat because they believe you're supposed to go to college, even though they didn't plan for it. Because I sit with parents and they're like, well, my kid's going to college. I'm like, how are they going to pay for it? Well, I don't know. They're going to figure it out. I'm like, if you're going to force it on them, then you should have planned for it 20 years sooner.
Yeah.
You know? So we're going to teach you how to put your kids through college. We're going to teach you how the stock market works. You know, just the basics so you understand what you should be in and what you shouldn't. Like, we're going to teach you how to budget. You know, basic things like that.
Life insurance. Oh, my God.
You know, credit cards.
That's horrible.
You know, but it's not taught.
Credit cards was a bad one for us early.
Oh, I bet.
Young family, one working person. So every emergency, car breaks, blown out tire with the busted rim.
Straight to the credit card.
Yeah.
Yep, straight to the credit card. None of this is taught. Life insurance is, the lady I sat with last night, we're going to take $500,000, we're going to put it in an account, turn it into a pension. She'll never have to work a day in her life ever again. She's got an 18-year-old son, a 17-year-old daughter, and a 15-year-old with autism.
So they got a lot of living to go.
Right? 3 kids, one with special needs, single mom. She's a nurse at City of Hope, and her husband made really good money. He was a cartoonist, won a bunch of television awards. He's worked on King of the Hill, you name it, right? Big deal. But didn't have a lot. They had $500,000. That was it. We're going to take the $500,000, turn it into a pension. She'll never have to work a day in her life. And she tells me, can you come back again on Friday? I don't want to sign anything. I said, yeah, that's fine. I'll come back as many times as you want. Could I ask you why? She said, I feel guilty cashing the check. I feel like it's blood money almost. She's like, I feel guilty. That's middle class, this way of thinking. And so I had to explain to her, hey, I totally get it. That's normal. That's a righteous feeling, right? That's a good thing. I get it. But that's because you grew up broke. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Life insurance is the difference between middle America and wealthy America. Every time the rich die, they get richer. Every time middle class die or the poor die, they get poorer. And it's that thinking right there. Life insurance is the last gift that someone leaves to their family and the people they love and care about after they're already gone. Yeah. The best thing your husband could have ever done for you was have that in place. Because the opposite would mean you have to work the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so I had to reshape her thinking. But that's the thing with middle America is they're not taught money. And so that's the foundation of it. And then past that would be the fact that, bad spending habits, right? Just the basics of like, hey, we should take 10% of every check and put it towards this. People buy into their 401k. They think it's a good thing for retirement. It's the worst place you could put your money for retirement. It makes no sense, no matter what, if you just get a basic education on it, to dump money into that thing past what your employer matches you. If they give you 3 and you put in 10, you're making a 7% mistake every paycheck.
Wow.
But people don't know this stuff because it's not taught. And so I would say just poor money management. And then the other one would be, are you familiar at all with the phrase lifestyle creep?
No.
So lifestyle creep is more common in business than it is, I would say, it as an employee, because as an employee, your income's pretty fixed. In most cases, it's not constantly going up. But lifestyle creep is where I continue to make more money, but as I continue to make more money, my lifestyle continues to creep up and improve. So the reality is no matter how much money I make, I'm always broke. Versus it's that middle class thinking of make money, spend money, make money, spend money. I used to have it. I used to go, hey, Dad, I'm going to get paid on Friday. My check will be like $1,100, like back when I was working at In-N-Out or whatever in high school. Can I borrow $500? Because I want to go buy this today, and then on Friday when I get paid, I'll give you my $500 back. So I was spending my money before I even had it.
Wow.
Like now I look back, I was like, God, that was stupid. But I was a kid, I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But it's that lifestyle creep where if you make $100,000 a year and spend $100,000 a year, you're still broke. And most people who make $100,000 a year spend $130,000.
Yeah.
Because they got credit cards and interest rates on their house and their car and all this stuff. You're still broke. You can make $1 million a year, and if you spend $1 million a year, you're still broke. And so it doesn't matter how much money you make. What really matters is wealthy people make money and they use it as an asset and they put it in places to make them more money. The dollar is just a soldier. So if I got 100,000 soldiers that could go out and collect more soldiers, that's my money. I made more money in interest on investments of just money sitting somewhere last year than most people making a salary at their job. But the reality is that if I could get my money to make me money versus my money to go collect me more liabilities, right, which is debt, that's the difference. And so you fast forward 10 years down the road, man, 10 years you could be done.
Man. Yeah, I think, the knowledge, knowing how to use it is the biggest thing. Yep. I think, my thing on life insurance was big because, you see people die, and then you see, especially online, right? And
right.
then what do they put up on right after that?
GoFundMe.
A GoFundMe.
Yep.
And I would go to the GoFundMe, and if you had a lot of good friends, you would get $30K that on a good,
for sure,
good friends, right? Good family, and you get enough. And then you would get some people, and it was like you go to the page after a few days, and it's like $750.
Yep.
And to bury somebody decently, $15,000, $20,000. I mean, that's pretty low. You're probably cremating and then taking the ashes to your house.
Yep. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's sad.
So it would be really sad. And I told my wife, like, yeah, this is something that I got to get. I don't want to leave you guys with not even no money to bury me.
Right.
Like, that's sad.
Yep.
And then there was a lot of death amongst family and amongst men that left their wives. Like you said, they leave their wives, and some of them left them well and had good pensions and good savings and good stuff. But some of them were like, it's a struggle. Like, I have to go back to work now. Yeah. And after not working terrible. For years, which is rough. And sometimes it's just to go back to work for maybe benefits, because maybe they're not old enough to collect Medi-Cal or whatever. Right. So that was like scary. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, man, I'm like, that's cold, because that's like the last thing you want to leave with. You're leaving with the heartache, but now with the financial heartache. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And that financial heartache carries on forever. I mean, what happens with middle class people usually when someone dies? This was a 2-household income. Now let's say they did well. They both made an average of $80,000 a year or whatever, which is better than most. So this house is bringing in $160,000 a year. They're in a 30% tax bracket, so they're bringing home after taxes about $8,000 a month between the two of them. And now one of them's gone. Well, that family was probably living an $8,000 a month lifestyle, and so now one's gone. They only have the life insurance they get at their job 5 times their salary or 10 times their salary or whatever, if that. Or they bought into, I don't even want to say his name, but they bought into this Christian financial guy.
Okay, let's talk about that after. Let's get your point, and then I'm going to talk about that after.
And who tells them, like, oh, no one's supposed to get wealthy from life insurance. Like, you're not supposed to make a profit off life insurance. It should just be enough to pay off your house, which is BS, man. It's horrible advice. It's philosophical, right? There's no right or wrong answer. But I've watched families, and I have clients of families who have died with life insurance, with a little bit of life insurance, and with a lot of life insurance. And the next 20 years of each family's life is very different. If someone dies and they get the right amount of life insurance, right? So the right amount of life insurance is like 30 times your annual salary. That's ideal. People go, well, why that? Why 20 to 30 times? Well, because I could take, let's say you have 20 times. Let's say you make $100,000 a year, and we'd use 20 times your salary, at least. 20 times your salary is $2 million. You die tomorrow. I could take $2 million. I could put it in an account. I could guarantee your wife a 5% return every single year, guaranteed. For the rest of her life, 5% of $2 million is $100,000.
She can live off
so
that.
Now she's got your salary for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
Well, if I buy into this other philosophy where we owed $380,000 on the house, we have $400,000, you die, sure, we pay off the house, but now what?
You still have...
Now mom's got to go back to work.
You still have the taxes on the house.
You got taxes, you got car payments, you got utilities, you got kids' college, you got medical, you got all this stuff.
Yeah.
You got to go right back to work. So it's just like... It's crazy, man. People do it. They do it wrong, though. Okay, but they do it wrong on accident. They just don't know any better. And by the way, my first 5 years of my career was in the Mexican market, the Mexican community, where I cannot tell you the amount of times someone sat across from me and said, "Oh, I'm not leaving Sancho shit." Right? I got that like 4,000 times my first 5 years of my career, and then it was reshaping the thinking of, hold on a second, that's not what this is about.
Well, I think that comes from, and this is what I want to ask too, because I think it comes from pride. Like,
yeah.
You say that out of pride, like, I'm not leaving nothing, because you don't want to sound dumb.
Right.
And I think I think for a lot of people out there to go to a financial guy, it's intimidating, because you're gonna have to face reality. Like, hey, this is not good. This is not good. This is not good. You're gonna have to reshape it. And so I think it's a little bit embarrassing to go and lay everything out for somebody that you're like, okay, like, this guy's just going to make me look dumb. I mean, Jay's pulling up in the G-Wagon, and he's gonna, and he's going to give me advice. I'm going to feel like an idiot.
That I agree 1,000%. That is probably where a lot of the belief comes from. Also, the traditional image of a financial planner is a 65-year-old white guy with gray hair who looks like he would be president of the United States, right? Like, when I walked in that client's house the other day, because I don't really go sit with clients very much anymore, but this is a lady who's been my client since the beginning of my career. And so when I went in, she had her brother there, or her brother-in-law and sister, just so she could kind of get like some support because she's still in the grieving process. And as soon as I walked in, he turns around and he goes, "Well, you are not what I was expecting." And I said, "I know, you're expecting some old white guy with gray hair." and he goes, "That's exactly what I was expecting." But so the traditional image of finance also is very intimidating, I think, and prejudice in a lot of ways. Financial institutions of a high quality also don't cater to middle America. They cater to the rich. They're chasing around, your Kim Kardashian and your LeBron James, not your neighbor next door, right? And they also don't market to anyone making less than $500,000 a year. And so you think of, I'm going to go walk into an Edward Jones office, or I'm going to go walk into a Smith Barney or a Charles Schwab. Well, you're right. They're not going to take you as a client if you're not 1.5 million liquid,
right,
investable assets.
It's not worth it.
Yeah. So my mom and dad never had that opportunity, and that's really why I love what I do. back to the core in the beginning of my career is being able to take the education to people that will never get it elsewhere.
How do you know what to look for?
In what?
In when you go to a financial advisor? What's your what's your, because it's scary. And you don't know is this going to work? This guy
for sure.
just could bounce, and I don't ever see him again, and my money
1000%.
loses money.
I think if I was going to go, knowing what I know now, if I was going to go find a financial advisor and I wasn't in the industry, the first thing is going to someone who's non-captive. So in the industry, there's what's called a captive agent and a non-captive agent. Captive means I work for one specific institution. So if we were to go to the sports world, just as an example, if I walk in a Nike store, they're going to sell me Nike. That's it. No Adidas, no Under Armour, nothing else. So if I walk into a captive office, so for example, let's say I'm trying to buy life insurance, and I walk into AAA. Great company. AAA is going to sell me AAA though. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So they're not going to do my homework.
Right.
Someone's going to sit there who's getting paid a commission, go, yeah, AAA, boom, all the way. Now, I could probably, and I know factually, get a much better product somewhere else, but I walked in a AAA office. And I trust AAA because they do my car insurance, and when I get a flat tire, they're the ones who come rescue me. So I assume everything's great. It's a good policy. If I die, they pay. But is it the best? Probably not. There's a lot of types of life insurance. There's a lot of different types that do different things. Most people, if they buy into that other philosophy, they buy term. Okay, well, my mom had term when she was 19. My mom and dad got married at 19. They had term. My mom and dad were my first clients. They had term for 25 years. And when I sat down with them, I said, Mom, could I ask you why you bought term? Oh, we got it when we first got married. I said, yeah, but if you're not dead in 5 years, you lost all your money. What do you mean? No, I have it forever. No, Mom, you don't have it forever. It's good for 30 years. That's it. And wow. she didn't know that. So people don't know. So you go to a captive agent, they sell you one thing. So the first thing would be to go to a non-captive agent, someone who, like myself, as an example, I'm licensed with the top 200 firms in the industry. So you're able to more cater towards the actual client and their needs. So a non-captive agent represents the client, not a company.
It's already prepackaged. Here you go.
Yeah, I work for the client. So I go, all right, Dave, what do you want? You're like, well, Jay, I got life insurance. Okay, well, do you have the right amount? Do you have the right type? When's the last time you did a review on it? Like, is your agent sitting with you every year? Like, the industry changes constantly. So what do you have now? Like, what you have might have been good back then, but what do you have now? Well, no, I haven't done it. I don't know the answer to any of those questions. Yeah. Okay, well, let's sit down and look. What's your goal? If you're gone tomorrow, what do you want left for your wife? What do you want left for your kids? Okay, based on everything you just told me, this is what you need. Now let's look at what you have. And then we look at what the client has. And then in a lot of cases, the client goes, well, like let's pretend Cam was 12 and Ash was, 14, 15, whatever. I'm not sure the age difference. 14. Okay, she does. So let's pretend, then you're like, well, I want to have something for them. So in 10, 15 years, they got some liquid cash. And if they want to start a business, they can or whatever. So then a good agent, a non-captive agent who represents the client and has licensing contracts with the entire industry, might go, well, here's a product from Prudential. Here's a product from Transamerica. Here's 3 products from Nationwide. And now you have an actual portfolio. I always ask every client, did you get educated on how to purchase your life insurance by your agent, or did you just get sold something?
Sold.
Yeah.
That's huge. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Okay, so we mentioned the guy.
Dave Ramsey.
Yeah. Right? It's almost like a thing now for somebody to post on their story, and I did the Dave Ramsey program, and
Financial Peace University.
Financial Peace. I'm debt free. What's the biggest problem with that? I applaud those people. Hey, they're debt free now. I don't know what they did to be debt free. Maybe they lived in their mom's basement for 5 years. And that's how they did it. Because I think that's part of his advice, right? Whatever you got to do.
If you could go back to mom's house, go back to mom's house.
Yeah, right. So what's the biggest problem with that whole? I mean, because to me, I tell people, look, he's selling something.
100%.
if he's selling something and he's telling you to buy it, I mean, isn't that already like going against his own rules a little bit?
Yeah, that I would say. So first of all, for the credit card debt, he uses a philosophy that's coined as a snowball effect. Right,
The biggest one first.
Pay the biggest one first.
Okay.
Double up. Blah blah blah. Get rid of it.
Is that wrong?
No, it's great advice.
Okay.
Okay. His debt advice on don't file bankruptcy, don't consolidate. Like I agree with all that. That's good advice. The thing about Dave is that Dave's a Christian dude, right? So, or at least he claims to be a Christian dude. I can't speak on it or not, but he claims to be a Christian dude. He's marketed as a Christian dude. So he got into all the churches, right? So the churches teach Financial Peace University, which is good. It teach you how to get out of credit card debt. Dave's marketing, you nailed it. He's selling Finance 10, like I wouldn't even call it 101, like Finance 100 to targeted specifically to broke and middle America. So he's selling an idea, a concept to broke and middle America.
He's got that niche down. Right.
And he's the only one doing it,
Yeah.
right? Just like I said, no financial firm's doing it. Therefore, Christian guy, old white grandpa,
Yeah.
he'll answer your phone call if you call in. Like, I got your back. Like he's Captain Save-A-Ho to middle America, right? That's Dave Ramsey. And so, but I mean, which is good because a lot of people get out of credit card debt. Where I disagree with him is everything past that. When he says buy term, put the rest in a Roth IRA, or buy term, put the rest in a mutual fund. That's where I disagree. His whole philosophy of no one gets wealthy. You're not supposed to get wealthy on life insurance. If your husband dies, he's not supposed to leave you set for the rest of your life. Like I completely 1,000,000%.
Why does he say
disagree.
that then?
I don't know. I don't get it.
I mean, just hearing that doesn't make sense.
He sells it as a moral flaw. If you're doing that, it's wrong. You're not. That's not what life insurance is designed for. But I will tell you, as someone who's been in the industry for a long time now, and we've paid out a lot of death benefits, my only regret every time is we didn't do a bigger policy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's
Every time.
I mean, because it's such a small amount, right? Every month, it's like it doesn't make sense. You don't even see it. You pay Netflix, you don't see that $12.99. Oh, I did see the $12.99. I didn't see the $9.99. I didn't see the $9.99 for years, right?
Right.
And then I mean, it's that. I mean, simple.
Yeah, life insurance is it's the only thing in the world that I could pay. Let's just pretend I am getting a term policy, right? Because term is the lowest cost of a monthly premium. So let's say I'm 25 years old or I'm 55 years old, whatever. Either way, and I'm like, I want $2 million of life insurance. I get a $2 million term life insurance policy for less than a couple $100 a month. It's the only thing that I pay $200 a month. If I die, they write a check to my family for $2 million, literally tomorrow. Tomorrow. I don't have to have it for a certain amount of time. I don't have to pay into it for XYZ amount of days before I die. Nothing. I pay $200. They approve me. My policy is active. I kick the bucket 2 days from now. They write a check for $2 million to my family. And then in the IRS code, there's Internal Revenue Code 7702, which defines all life insurance as a replacement for a loss. Just like car insurance. So if Cam's driving his Toyota and someone hits him, and they go, all right, your Tacoma is worth this much money, here's a check. He's going to take that check, deposit it, and he's never going to have to pay taxes on that money. Same thing on home insurance. If they say your house was worth $700,000, it burned down. Here's a check for $700,000. You deposit it.
They can't touch it.
Zero taxes. Life insurance is the same thing. I'm going to take that $2 million check, deposit it in the bank, and it's not even considered income. It's considered replacement for a loss. So it's dollar for dollar, $2 million. And when I go to the IRS, I owe nothing. And so for someone to say, well, you should only get, like mortgage insurance, how much do you owe on your house? $500,000. Okay, we're going to get you a mortgage protection insurance. Every year it goes down because you owe less on the house. Like, it's just such a scam. It's such a scam. I'm like, I don't need freaking mortgage insurance. slap me with a $5 million life insurance policy, and I'm set.
Yeah. Is there ever a time when you would tell somebody it's too late?
Only if you can't qualify.
What do you mean qualify?
So life insurance is a thing where you...
No, I mean, I'm sorry. I didn't answer.
Or which part?
Like, to change the way you use your money.
No, never.
It's never too late.
Never
So
too late.
so a client comes to you, let's say they're almost 60 years old, and they say, hey, I'm good shape. I'm working. I want to work till I can't work no more. I love working. This is how much I make. And maybe they look a little upside down for you, on a lot of things. What is there's never too late to make some changes there.
No, I actually got a text today from someone who I believe is, I want to say around 60, man, maybe around 65. And said, hey, I've got $120,000. Should I put it into this account? They've been a client of mine for a while. Or should I put it over here? And I'm like, well, my first question is always, what's the goal?
What do you want to? Yeah.
What do you want to do?
That's good.
Do you want to put it in? Are you trying to put in 120 and then pull out 200,000 next year? Like, is that what you're trying to do? And then you're going to go buy a Ferrari, or are you trying to put it in there and not touch it for the next 10 years? Are you trying to put it in there and then in 5 years start using it as an income to supplement your retirement and stack on top of your Social Security, or what's your goal? And if you could identify the client's goal, man, at 60 years old, people think maybe 60 is too old, to start doing something. But Warren Buffett made 90% of all his wealth after 60 years old.
Crazy.
That dude was an ordinary dude in his 50s. And after 60 years old, the dude became Warren Buffett. And so a lot of times people think, is it too late? It's never too late. And it's also never too late if you've got family that you care about, that you want to leave a legacy behind for.
Yeah.
Which I think is the goal. The goal is, I always ask everyone, do you have a legacy plan? I don't even know what that is. Well, do you have anyone you love and care about that if you were gone tomorrow, you'd want them taken care of? Yeah, of course. Okay, so that would be the legacy. The legacy is what you leave. I always ask people, what does legacy mean to you? Or what does generational wealth mean to you? They go, generational wealth means usually what they say is like my kids are taken care of. Okay, so let's pretend you're gone tomorrow. What did your generational wealth legacy look like? I ain't leaving nothing. Okay. Are you cool with that? Because that's what makes middle class, is they die every day and leave nothing. A couple pairs of Jordans, a fake Louis Vuitton bag, and that's it. So the reality is like, is it too late to get my crap together? No, it's never too late. And then especially when you're older, is planning even for yourself, we call it asset protection, right? Let's say I got $1 million 401k. $1 million 401k, I've seen firsthand with clients that didn't prepare for it, $1 million gone in 2 years, just in healthcare when you get older. Long-term care, right? Yeah. Long-term care, not having. So we do long-term care planning, estate planning, a will, a trust. The goal with your money, in summary, when I sit with a client, we do specialized wealth planning and legacy planning. The goal, especially for anybody, but it really is very common amongst wealthy, is to become what I call to become financially bulletproof. You come sue me, you ain't getting nothing. On paper, I am broke, and on paper, I own nothing. Everything's in the trust. I own nothing. And that's the goal.
I think the biggest thing for me with you and what makes you believable is that you came from nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
And you're a believer. And I think when I talk to you about this stuff, I think the thing is your dad was broke. You've seen that. Yeah. You lived that. You like, what problem a client comes to you with, and you're like, yeah, we had that problem in my family. Or we went through that, or we know what that is, or we used to think like that, whatever it may be. Did your dad turn it around?
So here's the funny thing. My dad, because my dad is the one who introduced me to the broker, I ended up thankfully, I have a coach in business. His name is Dan Charlier. And then my mentor in business is a gentleman most people know named Ed Milet. So, are you familiar with Ed Milet?
No.
He's got one of the number one podcasts in the country.
Really?
Yeah, very good friends with Joe Rogan and
Okay.
the whole shebang. So you've probably seen him on social media if you look him up. So these guys did us a solid. But because my dad got licensed and my dad's the one who introduced me to our industry, my dad actually overrides my entire company.
Nice.
So my dad's full-time in ministry, does nothing really in business, just keeps his license active. And he's technically my broker. So they did that as a gift.
Cool.
So he overrides my whole company about 17%, which equals about $500,000 a year.
I mean, what a blessing that you
It's
get to give back to your dad. That
parents are retired.
and not only that, but that a guy that was faithful in ministry all those years gets to be like, okay, God rewarded his son, and who was in turn be able to bless him back.
Yeah, man. About 30 to 40 grand a month just to wake up. It's literally the best thing that's ever happened. And to me, and that was I'm forever grateful for my coach, because my coach in business structured it that way on purpose. He didn't have to do that. And so it's changed my whole family's life, man. It's been
So sick, man.
very, very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's definitely what a blessing. Let me ask you this. You do a lot of stuff with NBA players. Got a lot of NBA clients, legit clients. How did you land your first client?
So the first one came as a referral. There was a lady working with me at the time named Jen. Jen was a photographer on the side. She had a friend, a guy named Dave Dawson, who went to Biola. She went and shot photography for his birthday party. Dave was doing very well, very connected in the sports world. Had some time in the NFL, broke his ankle, lost his career. But so she introduced me to him. She was like, "Hey, coach, I want to introduce you to my friend Dave. Like, he's a big deal, maybe you could help me and get me some referrals and blah, blah, blah." So I met him. And then he introduced me to a friend of his named Rob Paulele, Polynesian guy who played football at USC. And now he is the kind of like the bridge for a lot of USC's athletes going from college world to NFL. Through him, got a couple referrals. He did a lot of stuff in Utah with the Jazz, which became one of my very first referrals. Was
Nice.
an NBA player who was playing in Utah at the time. And then once you get one, man, you get it all. So
it's very important that you have some integrity, that you don't
for sure.
burn people, and that
For sure.
what you're saying actually works.
Yeah, in our industry, especially, and I would say in any industry, especially in today's world with social media, Yelp, all of these things that exist, we are in an information world now where something instantly goes viral. Your ability to do the right thing every time is really the only thing we've got. I mean, in today's world, it's your name. You got your name, and that's it. That's it.
That's the truth.
The second that's gone, man, it's it.
So you're going. You told me before we started. You're going to the NBA draft. This week.
So the draft's on Thursday. Yeah.
Okay, so explain to everybody how a guy gets signed and gets millions of dollars,
Well,
and ends up broke.
that's
Sometimes before the end of his NBA career.
That's the thing, man. It's less. It happens less now.
I was
than
going
it
to say
used
that.
to.
I was going to say that it happens a lot less now, because
Right.
I think now, like you said, the information that we can find is a lot more accessible, and,
Right.
and you're able to ask a little bit more questions and get to know people and do all that stuff and connect faster. But it still happens.
Yeah, it's still for sure. It still happens, and every guy's career is not the same length, right? So you got someone like Bron who's been balling forever, and this guy will continue to make money. But he's a businessman, though.
Yeah.
Right? Kobe was a businessman. Shaq, arguably, probably one of the best businessmen to ever do it. And if you dive into Shaq's past, you find interviews and stuff where he talks about the only reason he's in the position he is now is because he had a mentor who said, "Bro, what are you doing? You are blowing it. Like, you're blowing everything. You need to get your crap together quick, or you're going to go broke like everybody else." Right. You know, so he did. He ended up actually going back. Shaq got his master's degree, then got his doctorate. So he's actually Dr. Shaquille O'Neal, right? And people thought, oh, it's an honorary doctorate. No, it's a real doctorate.
Yeah, he's legit.
In fact, when he was getting his master's, he went to an online course, right, an online school, but he wanted to take the classes in person. And they told him, well, we can't do that for you, Shaq. Like, sorry, bro, we can't do that. We could only do in person if you have 12 or more people. So Shaq was like, well, I don't want to learn online. I want to learn in a classroom. So he paid for 12 of his friends to get their master's degree so that he could go in person. So they all went together. Isn't that crazy? Well, one of the greatest stories ever.
Yeah.
But honest to God, man, here's the reason why most athletes go broke. Most athletes, not as much in basketball. In football, yes. Not as much in basketball and a lot.
Do you think it's in football more because their career's shorter?
Well,
the average, it's like 4 years.
In baseball,
right?
It's very rare.
Because they can play forever in baseball.
And the difference is a lot of guys playing football and some guys playing basketball, they all come from the hood in a lot of cases. These are sports is there in a lot of cases. I don't want to stereotype, but in a lot of cases,
but it's facts though.
Sports is their only way out.
Yes, it's
their way out of the hood. So the second they make it, basketball is a guaranteed contract, right? Baseball is a guaranteed contract. Football, they need to fix it. I don't know. I don't think they ever will. But football is the only sport where it's not guaranteed.
That's the biggest scam because you have the biggest chance of getting injured.
And that's why it's not guaranteed, right? Yeah. They're like, that's why you see guys are like, bro, throw me the ball. I need one more catch to get my bonus.
Yeah.
And so, but the reason why is a lot of these athletes, man, like they go their whole life to make it. And the second they make it, they go back and they take care of mom, right? So mom gets a mansion, dad gets a mansion, grandma gets a mansion, grandpa gets his Rolls Royce, and they spend all this money.
And then the posse gets
and then they got their posse, right?
Yeah.
And then they got a bunch of old white dudes in suits and ties breathing down their necks, their managers, their agent, the guys all trying to sign them. It's like when a guy first signs, they sit down in a room and someone sells them a 401k. But the reality is that everyone has a financial vested interest in everything they're setting up for all these guys because they're all getting a piece of the pie.
Right.
Everyone wants to put their hand in the pocket and in the jar and in the money bag. And so, plus these guys, they never learned anything about money. They're sitting there going like, hell yeah, I'm going to go buy my G-Wagon. And that's the first thing they're going to do. And so they're not thinking about saving money, and they sure as heck ain't paying attention to some 90-year-old white dude's 401k presentation. And then before you know it, you look at some of these guys that, like Ja, they get caught up in the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
They got a rough past, and they just wrong associations, man. And just before you know it, you screw everything up.
Yeah. Ruggs, the Raiders. Mm-hmm. Perfect. I mean, just screwed everything up. How much of a shock is it to these guys when they get that first check? I mean, the average guy like me probably can't fathom that, but you've seen it.
It's mind blowing.
I mean, you get all those zeros and you don't realize. I mean, Shaq was one of them. He said that he went and bought like 2 cars, and then he realized he was negative on.
He overdrafted his
account after his first check, and he was like, "Oh my god!" They're like, "Yeah, you didn't have enough money."
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's a crazy story. But I mean, for a guy like an average guy, what do we not realize? Like, what does that do to a guy that came from nothing?
The problem is it's the same thing as when you hit the lottery. You have someone whose financial and personal development identity is just not there, right? At the end of the day, this dude's a basketball player. He's one of the best in the world, but he's just a basketball player. He probably didn't really pay attention in a lot of cases while he was in college. A lot of his teachers just passed him because he was the all-star.
Yeah.
Someone else took his test for him in a lot of cases. This is all real stuff. This is exactly what happens. Some of them know. A lot of them, they go and, like, I got a lot of respect for guys that it's just risky. But the ones who finish, like, for example, if you watch women's basketball, they don't leave college early.
Right.
Because they know they ain't going to make no money in the WNBA. The highest paid player in the NBA right now is Curry, $48 million for a year. The highest paid women's basketball player in the whole WNBA, you know how much it is? Take a guess.
1.5.
$212,000.
Oh.
That's it.
I was thinking like 1.2 or something.
Nope. The Denver Nuggets mascot makes 3 times the salary as the top paid WNBA player. Isn't that crazy? With the average WNBA player making $62,500 a year.
You mean the Lion or the Cougar? What is
the
it?
Nuggets?
What is it?
It's a lion. Yeah, I think it's a lion. Yeah, the one that McGregor knocked out.
Yeah. Just recently I seen that dude.
That dude literally went to the hospital.
Yeah, I think he was on something, man. He was going ham on that.
He gave him one more too when he was already on the ground.
You see that, Kim? Yeah, it was bad.
Full left hook. But so I say it to say that women, they don't leave. Like if you're the top dog at Stanford or UConn, they stay and finish their degree because they know they're going to have their degree probably to go get a career after. Where the guys in the NBA, they 1 or 2 years in college and they're out.
Yeah, if that now.
If that. Right? Or they sit out like Melo and they go play overseas for a year and then they come back and get drafted. So a lot of these guys, they have no financial education. They have no financial background. They haven't done a lot of self-development. They haven't worked on themselves. You know, they come from nothing, and they were one of the best basketball players in the country or in the world, but they were probably, in a lot of cases, they were broke just an hour before they signed that contract.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so it's like someone hitting the lotto, man.
Yeah, they had to borrow money to get that suit.
And then
they wanted to draft.
Exactly. And then everyone and their mama's like asking for a handout, you know.
So what do you tell them? What do you say?
You got to get good with your money. You need to like I got one client who's a rapper, and this guy doesn't even carry a debit card. He can't go to the store and make a purchase without his manager. And I tell him, I'm like, bro, I remember sitting in downtown LA with another one of my agents, and we're sitting with this guy, and he's explaining this to us, and I said, listen, if we're going to do anything together, the first thing we're going to do is we need to get you to care enough about understanding your own money so that we can lay a foundation for you to do well financially, because you don't even care enough to pay attention. You're just like, I got people for that. That's how you get taken advantage of. That's how you end up with nothing. All these people got your debit card, and you don't even have your own debit card. You can't go to CVS right now and buy a water. You don't even have a way to pay. And by the way, that's how managers and all these guys, they keep people in this box, right? Like, you're just the stupid dude from the hood who made it with one song, and we're going to keep you the stupid dude from the hood. You don't need to know. You don't need to know any of this stuff. You don't need to worry about this stuff. We got it. Like, that's what you have us for. And like, no, bro. So I always say, look, you need to get good with your money. You shouldn't have to be able to depend on anybody.
Oh, man. That's crazy, man. I didn't even think about the rapper that's carrying $100,000 of cash in his pocket.
Worse than the athlete.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, and their window's probably it's pretty small. Unless you have bangers and you're Nas and you have a 30-year history of hits.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some of these rappers, they're on the Old Timers tour now and trying to just barely survive and
getting a residency in Vegas. That's how you know your career is over, bro.
You're opening for Donnie and Marie.
But you know, the funny thing is that if someone gets, that's why now there's like they're business athletes. You know, like you look like Jokic. Jokic don't give a crap about the NBA. This is something he just does in the off season. Yeah. The NBA he just wants to go home and watch horse races where these guys, the horses like have training wheels. It's the craziest thing, but that's like the NBA is just a little side thing he's doing. You look at Jay-Z. Jay-Z's not a rapper. Jay-Z's a businessman.
Yeah. Music
was just his platform. That's why Jay-Z's worth so much money. That's why the dude's a billionaire. Music was his platform. He's also not stupid. So he married Beyonce, another businesswoman.
Yeah.
You know, and so the two of them there, music is the platform. Music is what makes them money. Music is what they did to get where they're at, but they're entrepreneurs, you know, and they've worked a lot on themselves. These are guys. Nipsey was a client of our firm. Nipsey was so money smart. The dude was a financial guru, and he was self-educated, and he worked on himself. And Nipsey had a lot of life insurance when he died, and he left Lauren in a very good position. And so, from the hood, but made it out, never really got out, but made it, and also worked a lot on himself so that he built something that lasts.
You mentioned Nipsey. Question for you. Now that you're successful, Nipsey's probably knock against him was he loved the hood too much, and the hood let him down.
Yep.
You know what 100%. I mean? His own people, really. Yep. Right? Is that the biggest problem with money? Because you get jealousy, you get people that hate on you and or want something from you, right? Is that how big of a problem is that for you personally?
Well,
because it must be very hard to trust people.
Yeah, my circle is very small.
Yeah.
I know a ton of people, and even more people than I know me. That's the scary part, is when you run into people that know you and you don't know them, and like we've had some problems with that. But the thing I hate the most is when someone asks me to borrow money. That's the one thing I hate the most. And it's not because I don't want to give someone money. I love to give. The reason it bugs me is because then that becomes the defining point of our relationship, right? It's like now I'm looking at you like you owe me money, you know, and even though I don't want to,
it just
and I told you don't got to give it back to me, but in your mind you want to give it back to me, so you keep saying you're going to give it back to me, and I'm trying to just forget about it. And you're like, hey, I'm going to, you know, and then now that becomes it just creates this awkward, even worse, right, bro, is when they ask to borrow money, and it's worse when they know you have it. That's what makes it worse. And one guy told me recently, it's a good friend of mine, he asked me to borrow $15,000, and he goes, I know, and he said in his message, I know you have the money.
Yeah, that's bad.
And now I'm like,
just ruined the friendship.
Yeah, I'm like, really, bro? Like, seriously? I ended up not giving it to him, and he made it. So I'm like, but then the fact that, like, why? It's just that's the thing that makes it so. It's just awkward, you know. I would rather just give it to you and you just take it as a gift and a blessing, and we never talk about it again. You know? Yeah,
I think that would be the hardest thing, is just having people constantly asking, or the awkwardness of situations. Like, something happens, you know, let's call Jay.
Yeah, you know, and the funny thing is you don't have to have money to be in that, because that happens to everyday people that are broke.
True.
You know, that, you know, you got no money and people still ask you for money. I think the hardest thing for adults, if you want to be successful in anything, in a career, in relationships, there's a point in your life where you have to become a little bit selfish, in order to get somewhere. Right. And the hardest thing for adults is learning how to say no. People don't know how to say no.
Yeah.
And so they're always like, someone I see even with people trying to build a career, they're so busy. And I'm like, how are you so busy yet so broke? How are you so busy but so unproductive? How are you so busy but so fat and unhealthy? How are you so busy but the quality of your relationships with your spouse and your kids and your friends suck? Because you're so busy being broke, you make no time for yourself to get ahead in anything. And so it's I don't get invited to birthday parties. I get invited to weddings sometimes, but like I don't get invited for the night out on Friday, like, because people know I'm not coming. They don't even ask. They just know Jay ain't coming. I guarantee you he's not free. But I'm so free. But I learned very early in my career how to say no. And that was probably the greatest lesson I ever learned.
I asked a few people this, man. I know you got some. We're running out of time here, but
no rush.
can you be successful in business, money, in your circles, and suck at home and still call yourself successful?
No, I don't think so. I think, well, it depends. It depends who you're talking to. Because what one person's definition of success may be is different for someone else. For me, I think a lot of people, they search for balance. That's how people vocalize and like communicate what they want. I just want balance, and I want to be comfortable. That's everyday person language. I don't think there's any such thing as balance if you want to achieve something great, other than I'm going to go to my job, I'm going to clock in, I'm going to clock out, I'm going to do 40 years, 40 hours a week, make my 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110,000 a year, whatever. And I get benefits, and I'm going to retire. Like that sounds like hell to me. But that's your everyday person. Why would you leave your career to go chase a pipe dream, dude? Like, you got benefits, you work for the county, whatever. Like, this is the crap that your uncle will tell you, right? It's all the stuff I heard. But I think balance, really, because that lifestyle right there is not balance. People go, money's not everything. I'm like, well, you spend your whole dang life just making money. That's all you do is go to work.
Yeah.
You spend more time of your entire life at work to make money than you do anything else. And so don't tell me money's not everything, because you live your whole freaking life for money. And you still have none, by the way. You're still broke.
Ugh.
And so balance, I think, is what people chase, but you cannot ever get balance without having a little bit of a lack of balance in the beginning, right? So in the first 5 years of my career, all I did was work. Maybe in my head it would seem like 24/7 because I was always thinking about business, but I worked probably about the same amount of time that someone worked at a job. But I just worked for myself, and I just felt like I was always working. But I loved it, and I was passionate about it, and it was a blast. And I was, for the first time in my life, I was making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, and I was in the middle of my 20s. This is 10 years ago. And so there was a lack of balance. But now I look at my life, I can do whatever the heck I want. Literally, all day, every day, anything. I could do anything. My neighbors think I deal drugs or something because I'm always home. I'm always home. I drive nice cars. I do whatever I want, And so has to be a lack of balance. But true happiness is what I think is success. And I think true success is your faith and your family and your friends and your finances, those 4 F's. And I add fitness in there too, because I don't think anyone could be happy if you just don't feel good. So faith, family, friends, finance, fitness, those 5 F's.
Love that.
And I think true success is and freedom is freedom of time, because I know a lot of people that have all the money in the world and have no time.
Time is the most precious thing, right?
That's everything.
Yeah.
Time is everything. So freedom of time, and then freedom of finances, right? I know a lot of people with tons of money and no time, and I know a lot of people with tons of time and no money. I don't know very many people that have both. They have all the money, freedom in the world, and all the time in the world.
That's the life.
That's the life, right? But those two things, in of itself, is a recipe for suicide. Because you look at every big act, you look at Robin Williams. Robin Williams had all the time in the world. He didn't have to work. And he had all the money in the world. And every accolade in the world. Miserable. So it's freedom of time, freedom of money, but then also fulfillment.
Yeah.
And purpose, right?
Right.
When you meet someone who's depressed, the in a lot of cases, the driving underlying feeling of depressed is it doesn't matter if I'm here or not, right? That's the thing. That's the thing at the core. Like, dude, if someone who's suicidal, if I kill myself today, no one will give a crap.
Yeah.
No one will even notice.
Right.
Life would be easier for everyone if I wasn't here. I'm a burden, right? That's that mental health thing that everyone's battling. And so I got success, but I also have purpose and fulfillment. What I do matters. When I wake up, I'm chasing something that makes a difference. That's why I loved, the finance game, because I'm sitting with people who no one else is going to sit with. I'm driving to the hood, sitting in someone's horrible apartment, and I'm walking in a 3-piece suit, and people are looking like, who the heck is this? And even me, I'm like, I do not belong here.
The police.
But I'm sitting with some single mom, right, who's got a 2-year-old who could only put $50 a month into an account, but that $50 a month is like everything to her, and so there's fulfillment there, there's purpose there. It's like, man, at the end of the day, I'm doing something I'm proud of. I'm doing something that matters. And I think most people don't. I think most people don't have that. In fact, I think most people don't have fulfillment. They do a job that they wouldn't do for free. Most people ain't got no time because they got to go to work. And most people ain't got no money freedom because the job pays you enough money for you to keep showing up, but not enough for you to ever be able to leave.
We've came full circle. We go back to that firefighter.
Yep, exactly.
That was it. Everything you just said, that was his life.
And so that's why I look. You can start a career. I tell people, look at the guy who's been there 30 years. That's your future. If that's not what you want, then don't do it.
So where do you see yourself, man? 10, 15 years when it's time to retire? Do you retire?
I'm pretty much retired now, but I maybe work 8 hours a week, maybe now. But my passion now, I think my purpose now is found in helping other people achieve their goal. That's what I do the most now. I've got 300 agents from all backgrounds, all walks of life. It's really interesting because in the very beginning of our conversation, we were talking about, growing up in the church, right? We do a Bible study for our company, and I get a group of us that we do the whole Bible in a year. And I get on there with them, and we read the scripture. And then these are people that never went to Sunday school, never went to vacation Bible school, never went to Awana. Like, they have no background in church. Like, right. This is the first time they have ever read the Bible their entire life, and they're 30-something. And so we get on there, and I'm, explaining it to them, and so we're going through it, and, they just, to me, I'm just, I'm picturing flannel graphs, in Sunday school, back in the day, And for them, it's, the most incredible experience of their life, So I feel like my purpose now, my goal now, what I love now is helping other people achieve their goal. I think true leadership is when, and you alluded to this, is when you meet someone who's buried in debt, or someone who's broke, or someone who's trying to figure out how to make it, or someone who's just like, dude, I'm not buried in debt. I'm not broke. I have a great career. I make good money. I've got $200,000 in the bank, but I hate my lifestyle. I do not want to do this forever. I hate my job. I would not do it for free. It's too much pressure, too much stress, too much time, too much traffic, whatever it may be. I make all the money in the world. I'm doing great. I have no debt, but I never see my kids. Right. I never get to go to my kid's basketball game.
Right.
Because I have to work. So whatever it is, it's teaching someone how to go from there to, all right, now, you make money as an employee. Then you transition to where, I still got a job, but now I'm also making money self-employed on the side while I have a job. I get to the point where I replace my income from my job. Now I could quit my job. Now I'm working for myself. Now I'm going to start transitioning into this being a full business, becoming a business owner. And then, boom, now I got a system. I got people working with me. I got stuff going on. Now how can I transition into becoming an investor, right? Which is where now I own 10 of them. It's just, I'm not here anymore. And so teaching people how to transition that, I've got nurses, doctors, teachers, police officers, engineers, law enforcement, professional athletes, who start with us, get their license. I mentor them, I coach them, I teach them the industry. Dude, that stuff is a blast. So for me right now, my goal is, how many people can I make a 6-figure earner part-time, over the next 10 years? And how many people can I make a 7-figure earner full-time? And that, I think, and then teaching them the fundamental principles of how to do it right, how to give, how to, to pour into other people. The power of mentorship, bro. If mentorship is the most underrated, under talked about superpower in the world. If all these kids no one joins a gang because they want to become a criminal and spend their life in prison. They join a gang because they want to be a part of something, and there's nothing else available.
True.
You know, and so if everyone had a mentor, sometimes people just need someone to believe in them and care about them, you know, and give them an opportunity, give them a shot.
So good, man.
Yeah, it's fun.
I appreciate you coming out.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I had a blast.
That was some good stuff.
I hope so, but it was fun.
I mean, we're going to have to talk after.
I have no clue how long we've been doing this. It doesn't feel like very long.
154.
Oh, not bad.
That's right. Me and Cam will do one last thing, man.
Let's do it.
It's called the Furious 5. So I got 5 furious questions I throw your way.
Oh, here we go.
And I ask you these. You ready?
Yeah.
This is Jay Gauthier Jr. on the Street Gospel Furious 5.
Let's do it.
Question number 1. 1 starts, 1 gets benched, and 1 gets traded. Here they are. In-N-Out, Chick-fil-A, New York Pizza.
I would say Chick-fil-A starts, In-N-Out gets benched, and New York Pizza gets traded.
Question number 2. The nicest celebrity you ever met?
Ooh. David Beckham.
David Beckham.
Yeah.
Wow.
David Beckham.
I would think the English guy would be a little uppity up. You know what I mean? David
Beckham, man. That's a dude's dude.
Really?
That's a real man.
That's dope, man. That's good to hear. Question number 3 in the Street Gospel Fury 5. If you had one whip that you haven't had, but you want it, what is it?
Lamborghini Urus.
Is that the SUV one?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Justin Bieber's right.
I seen a couple of. If you go to VG Victoria Gardens on a Friday night, there's whips out there like that.
Yeah,
and I'm like, whose cars are these? Where are these people?
It's a dope car, man.
I've seen one like that over there one time.
Lambo's sold out 2 years in advance.
It's crazy.
They make a limited amount. 2 years in advance, they're already sold out.
Yeah, they're not dumb.
You can't buy one until 2025.
Are you going to be ready or what?
I don't know. I'm kind of over it.
Question number 4. Someone has $100 right now. Spare $100. What would you tell them to do with it?
Figure out how to turn it into $200.
What advice would you say?
There's a million ways to do it, man. I always tell people, before you catch me back at a job, you will find me on the side of the freeway selling oranges. Because at least I could sell them at my price, on my time, wherever the heck I want.
Wow.
And so I would figure out, what can I buy with $100 that I could flip for $200?
That's great thinking. That's great thinking. A lot of people don't think like that.
You do that 5-10 times and you're sitting pretty good.
Last question. Your biggest loss and your biggest win in life.
Biggest loss. I'll just give you the first thing that pops in my head. Probably not the biggest, but it was huge at the time. I pick up one of my agents. We're driving to this appointment. And I say, hey, who are we meeting with? Give me the heads up so I know what I'm walking into. Oh, I don't know. He's one of my customers at the shop. I think he does something with insurance. I'm like, okay, well, all right, that's all you know? That's all I know. Is he a suit and tie guy? No, he's always in flip-flops. I'm like, okay. We get there. We go up the elevator. We're 5 minutes late because the agent was late. As I'm getting out of the elevator, I see a front desk. And I go, holy crap, this dude's a big deal. We're going to blow it. We're late. I walk in. The guy's first words out of his mouth, do you make a habit of being late?
Ooh.
An hour later, he tells me he wants to see an account putting in $100,000 a month. That's about a $90,000 commission. At the very end, he goes, this looks great. I love it. That's exactly what I want. But I'm going to teach you guys both a lesson. I'm going to do it from someone else because you were late. And for the rest of your career, you'll remember that you should show up 5 minutes early, not 5 minutes late. And I was like, walked out, bro.
Dude.
Lost. At that point was huge. An entire year's income because we were 5 minutes late. That was the biggest loss. Biggest win? Man, there's been a lot of them. I would say being able to get into the professional athlete clientele is the biggest win. You get one or two of those. I mean, that's a life. That's a life right there. So
dope, man. Appreciate you, man, coming out.
Yeah, man.
That was awesome.
That's cool. guys do a really good job on this show. Like,
We
legit,
try,
you guys
man.
do a really good job.
We try, man. I appreciate that coming from you.
very
I know you
creative.
have your own. That's another thing you do. You had your
Yeah.
own podcast for a while there. Give me some knowledge out. You and the wife, right?
Yeah.
I've seen some of that. So
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
have a lot of fun with it.
you know a lot of people, obviously. So that's cool, man. I appreciate you coming out.
No doubt.
Where can people find you at, man? I know you have your company, Tenacity.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, J Gauthier Jr. You Google, whatever. But Instagram is probably my platform I use the most.
Cool, man. Appreciate you coming out. Everybody check out Jay, man. Give your ties. Spend your money right. Learn about money, man.
Amen.
Learn something today. Get something out of this podcast.
Amen.
I
Thank
love what you
guys.
said, too. Don't be embarrassed either.
Yep.
Do it.
Amen. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you, man. We out.